Anything can happen in March.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. March begins tonight for the Maryland Terrapins. And you know what they say about March Madness. Anything can happen in March. If you like college basketball, if you're kind of a fan of college basketball, even if maybe you don't like college basketball, I feel like everybody I've talked to always loves March Madness, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what team you like. March Madness is a little bit something different for the fans and for everybody that loves sport. Things happen in March that nobody expects to happen, whether it's a run that a team's not supposed to in the Big Ten tournament, like what Maryland is, or in the SEC tournament, or one seed beats the 16 seed in March Madness, which I'm pretty sure starts next week. I think Selection Sunday is this Sunday. There are so many different things that aren't supposed to happen in March, that aren't lined up to happen. The favorites aren't always going to win, which I think a lot of people like about March Madness. People, or not March Madness, March in general, because I want to make sure I'm not just talking about March Madness, because right now we're in the Big Ten tournament and Maryland probably isn't even going to March Madness. But I still like the idea of us playing in March, and this is probably our only opportunity to be able to play a meaningful game in March this year, and against this game against Rutgers tonight. And I want to appreciate it. I want to get excited. I want to get into that kind of mode of it being in that March setting in college basketball where you don't know what could happen. Literally anything is possible. Everything is on the table. I'm not saying Maryland's going to go make a run in the Big Ten tournament, but I did talk about, I do think Maryland has the pieces. I talked about it last night. If you want to watch the segment, go check out my video from yesterday, the podcast from yesterday. I did say I thought Maryland does have the right pieces to make a run in March. When you think about it, when I think about having a team that is underachieved but is still really talented, when I think about having a star player like Jameer Young who can go on a run himself and carry the team himself, dropping 30 points a game or whatever in the Big Ten tournament, I can see that happening. And you also have a really good big like Julian Reese, one of the better players in the Big Ten overall. But when you have a first-team player like Jameer Young, nobody wants to play you in the Big Ten tournament. And that starts tonight against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in one of the first matchups of the Big Ten tournament in the first round. And the thing about playing in the first round of the Big Ten tournament is that you didn't have a good year if you're playing in a first round. And it's set up for you not to win the thing. The way they have it set up is the buys that each team gets, like the top 4 teams get like double buys, I think it is. Like Purdue doesn't play for like a couple of days, and then you look at a team like Wisconsin, they have a single bye. They're the 5 seed. If we beat Rutgers, then we would go on to play Wisconsin, who's on a single bye. But it's set up for the upper echelon teams to win, and it's really set up for you. If you don't perform well in the regular season, it's really tough to win. And that's where Maryland's kind of sitting at. We're currently the number 12 seed in the tournament, and we go against Rutgers tonight, the 13th seed, at 6:30. And I think it feels like a fresh start to me, because I like to watch meaningful games. And when I was watching Maryland at the end of the season, it was hard to feel like it was meaningful and like it really mattered, because it was like, what are we doing at this point? Like, we're not going to get an at-large bid into March Madness. We're not like, there's not a lot to play for. Sure, maybe higher seeding in the Big Ten tournament, but I don't think we're going to win it. So it kind of felt like meaningless games, but this is the Big Ten tournament. So now I have a new energy watching this Maryland basketball team tonight to see what they look like in a win-or-go-home situation, which I really haven't seen them in this year. I haven't seen those type of games, and that's what's special about March. There's just so much that can happen when you only have one game. You only have to be better than the team for one game, and I don't think Wisconsin wants to see us next round. I'm pretty sure that Wisconsin team, the number 5 team who's on a bye right now, I'm almost positive that they much rather see that Rutgers team than see us tomorrow. I'm not sure what time the game would be, but I think that the next round is tomorrow. I would have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure the next round is tomorrow. But that's why, they don't set you up to win if you're one of the 13th or the 12th seeds in the March or in the Big Ten tournament. I keep wanting to say March Madness, but in the Big Ten tournament, because you get absolutely no rest. But we do get an Rutgers team tonight to potentially, instead of looking at it as no rest, maybe we could look at it as a warm-up game, and we're going to be ready to go in our next game if we beat them. Because I don't think this Rutgers team is that good. This Rutgers team is very They pretty much performed exactly where they were supposed to perform. They weren't supposed to be a top 3 team in the Big Ten like us. They were supposed to not be that good this year. I think preseason Big Ten polls, they were picked to finish at the bottom. This Rutgers team is 15-16, the same record as us, but I do think we're a lot better. I think we're more talented. I think we have a lot more guys than them, and I think we can get the job done. Well, I will talk about my predictions later, but I do think this Rutgers team is not anything crazy. And I also don't like Rutgers at all because I predicted Maryland to beat them on one of my other podcasts a couple weeks ago when we played them in the first matchup. And the Rutgers fans absolutely attacked me after Maryland won that game. I got this guy keep adding me on my Twitter and stuff, and I have nothing wrong with the actual Rutgers team, but I don't like a couple of their fans because of how much they were talking to me. And I talk about this every single time now that we play Rutgers. I don't like this Rutgers team. I didn't see why the fan was talking so much. I guess I like that energy. I like that trash talking stuff. I like that kind of stuff. But now I don't like you guys. And I'm hoping that Maryland is able to beat them and take care of business against this Rutgers team because I honestly thought that was pretty annoying. But we did split the regular season matchup against Rutgers 56-43 in the first matchup. Rutgers ended up winning. Maryland did not play good ball. But I will still say that they're not a really good team, but it's been very low scoring both of the times these teams played. And then the second matchup, Maryland won 63-46. I do think we're the better team. It's going to be probably a low scoring game, but I really think Maryland is the better team in this type of game. And like I said, you don't know what can happen. Rutgers could for sure beat us. It's pretty evenly matched, I would say, even though I think Maryland has more talent and everything. It's not like we're like invisible and that there's no way a Rutgers team like that could beat us. They definitely could. Like, going back to my point, this is March. Literally anything can happen in March. And the goal right now is just to win the game and get to the next game. And not to give a sneak peek to Wisconsin because we haven't even beaten Rutgers yet, but they are so beatable, that Wisconsin team. That Wisconsin team is the most beatable team I've ever seen. They'll be favored and whatever, but Maryland can beat that Wisconsin team. And if Maryland wins 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, I will be happy. But if it ends tonight, I will be extremely disappointed. I want to talk about more games. I want to have the opportunity to feel like we're doing something in the Big Ten tournament. I know, in the back of my head, I think in the back of all Maryland fans, it's like, what if we win the Big Ten tournament and get an automatic qualifier in March? That's not going to happen. We're on the same side as Purdue. I don't see us beating Purdue, even if we found a way to get there. You got to go through Wisconsin first and then Northwestern. 2 absolutely beatable teams. But I do think Maryland has the shot to be able to get it. And I do want to emphasize literally anything can happen in March. And I'm sure it's going to start over the past couple of days, whether it's a huge upset in one of these conference tournaments or it's like a buzzer beater. Everyone's seen those type of moments in March. If you're watching this, you know about that. You like college basketball. You know about those different things. So literally anything can happen in March. And I'm excited to see what this Maryland team can do. Can they get back? Can they hit their stride? Nobody wants to play the team that is really talented but hasn't quite figured it out all season, hasn't shot the ball well, because if they're able to turn that on, could be something scary for the rest of the Big Ten and anybody who we play in the tournament. How do the Terps take down this Rutgers team? I will tell you about that after this ad from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. How do the Terps take down the Rutgers Scarlet Knights tonight at 6:30 in this one of the first matchups in the Big Ten tournament? And I think it really starts with Julian Reese. I guess the status for this game is kind of up in the air. I'm expecting Julian Reese to play because, of course, he didn't play in the last regular season game against Penn State, where it really hurt us not having Julian Reese overall. Everything went downhill when we didn't have Julian Reese. I talked about Jameer Young being our best player, but we also need Julian Reese to have success. We don't have the depth. We don't have the scoring not to have a player like that. And that showed against Penn State, where we got absolutely crushed 85-69 without Julian Reese. And Penn State's big Wahab, who used to go to Maryland, went off for 19 points, almost 20 points, and he's not really supposed to do that. He's not that type of offensive player, and if Julian Reese is in the game, that doesn't happen. Penn State also out-rebounded us by a lot. I forget the exact number, but it was a lot, like over 15. It might have even been almost 20. It might have been 20. And that cannot happen. You can't get out-rebounded by 20 boards to a Penn State team. And that was a large part because we didn't have Julian Reese. We didn't have that low post presence either. There's a lot you miss when you don't have Julian Reese in the lineup. And so for Maryland to win this game, he has to come back and be healthy and also be effective. We're going to need him to be big time in order for us to win this game against Rutgers. The reason I think he's going to play is because Kevin Willard said he would have played if it was like a game that was like really important, but he decided to keep him out because of how many minutes he was logging and overall just how the year has gone, and you got to protect a guy like that, he said. And I guess you want to rest him for this matchup against Rutgers in the Big Ten tournament overall. So it does seem like Julian Reese should play. But there's been a lot of talks about Julian Reese potentially transferring and all that. And I think the number one mission this year has to be to keep Julian Reese. But that's a little bit of a side subject. But Julian Reese needs to come back healthy and play well for us to be able to beat this Rutgers team, especially going into the next round if we want any chance of upsetting Wisconsin. But that's a little bit ahead of themselves. A lot of what March and Big Ten tournament and whatever tournament you want to talk about is about big-time players making big-time plays in big-time moments. And that's what we have to have from our first-team All-Big Ten player, one of the best players in the conference. You could argue had the best season in the conference besides probably Zach Edey. He's just a different type of player, a guy that doesn't really come around. He's a generational type of player. He might go down as Purdue's best player ever. I don't know if that's crazy to say, but I really think that Zach Edey could go down as Purdue's best player ever in terms of their college basketball. But besides Zach Edey, you could say that Jameer Young had the best season out of anybody in the Big Ten. You could definitely argue other people, and it might not be Jameer Young when you really break it down, but you could definitely have an argument for what Jameer Young did with a team without as much support. A lot of players that were chosen to be first team All Big Ten, some of the other guys, like you think of Terrence Shannon, he had a lot of help with that Illinois team, very talented team overall. And we've seen Jameer Young make big-time moments. We've seen him make plays down the stretch, and that's what it's going to be about. A lot of it's going to be in his hands. There hasn't been anybody I've been able to trust consistently this year besides Jameer Young. Even Julian Reese has had his times where he hasn't played particularly well. So I'm looking at Jameer Young as somebody who, against this Rutgers team, needs to play well in as many more games as he can get. And I bet he'll be motivated because he knows that every single one of these games left tonight, if Maryland gets to the next matchup, could be his last game as a college player. So people are going to be looking at Jameer Young, and he's going to be looking at himself to carry the load, to get Maryland to the next round, to go on a run that he didn't really get to show this year. Maryland had a disappointing year this year, and it was no fault of Jameer Young, but I'm sure he doesn't want to go out like that at all. So I think he's going to be a big key to Maryland winning this game. And at the end of the day, your big-time players have to make big-time plays in these type of games in the tournament type of atmosphere, because at the end of the day, that's just how it goes, and that's how a lot of these tournaments are made. It's either your big-time players, and that leads me to my next point, or it can be someone from your supporting cast that doesn't normally play at a super high level, but puts in good minutes maybe, but doesn't go crazy all the time. Maybe they go off and play well for a game. That is also something that I hope might happen, and I think the Terrapins might need if they want to win this game. I think the supporting cast was there against Penn State. We got crushed, but people stepped up with Jameer Young only shooting 4-14 and Julian Reese being out. There was a bunch of guys that played pretty well on the supporting cast. I saw Jamie Kaiser have a really good game where he was able to score some points and score efficiently, and Deshaun Harris-Smith was pretty efficient, and Noah Batchelor shot like 3 of 7 from the three-point line. So if Noah Batchelor is a guy that I don't know if he plays in this game. His minutes have been super inconsistent all year long. I think maybe he's showed that he should play, and he's a guy that definitely could be out of this program, out of this year, after this year. That's just my assumption because he hasn't gotten minutes. He probably should be getting, especially with how bad we've been shooting the ball, and he's one of our better shooters and all this stuff. The year hasn't panned out for him, so I could definitely see him being gone. But maybe he shows himself in the Big Ten tournament. This is what I'm talking about. It's unexpected players that haven't exactly done something big all year, but they come in and show that the team might needed them all year and that they might have been the missing piece, and they play really well and they get a shot at maybe bigger minutes in the next game. Like, it could be someone like Noah Batchelor. It could be someone like Jamie Kaiser. It could be someone like Jahari Long, who also had a pretty efficient game. It could be anybody like that could really show that they're a good player and that they deserve more minutes. And then also defense is going to win us games in this tournament. Without it, we're nothing. We don't win games when teams score in the 80s. It just doesn't really happen. And so our defense has been a top unit all year, and we got to lean on that in this type of matchup. When you look at these type of games, you got to stick to your identity. You got to stick to who you are. And I think Maryland will do that, and I think they have to do that in this type of game. You got to get back to where you are and who you are. And I think Maryland will be able to do that tonight against Rutgers overall. But my last point is you got to force Rutgers to make shots, to make threes. They're not a great three-point shooting team. They're not a great offensive team overall. If you force them to make shots, and we haven't seen them do it at a high level yet, then I think you're in a pretty good spot overall. But what will actually happen? What are my predictions for the game? I will tell you about what I think happens after this ad from eBay Motors. Excuse me, after this ad from FanDuel. Say goodbye to the busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. You guys know what I've been talking about it all podcast. Anything can happen in March. So whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with your first bet of $5 wins. That's $200 to use in point spreads, money line bets. You can even pick who's going to win it all, whether you want to bet on Kansas to win it all or UConn or Baylor or whoever you may like, Kentucky. FanDuel has got you covered. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. What will happen in this game? Maryland wins the game. I'm going to go ahead and get it away. I feel like you guys could probably tell that was what I was going to go towards this entire time while I've been talking. I've really been pretty heavy on Maryland team this entire year, and I've been talking about it. I've been like, Maryland probably wins this game, and I think Maryland does win this game overall, this game against Rutgers tonight. I think Maryland's just better. I think we're more talented. I think we're better on paper. I think we just have a little bit more in the tank than this Rutgers team. I think we have the two best players on the court on Julian Reese and Jameer Young, as long as Julian Reese plays. And when you have the two best players on the court in basketball, it's hard not to win, to be honest. There's definitely like games where you might not win, but like if you have the two best players on the court, I really think your chances of winning the game are pretty high. And Maryland's not going to be able to say that about every game that they have in the Big Ten. But Julian Reese and Jameer Young are hard to match up with. They're two guys that have been two of the best in the Big Ten. And I don't think Rutgers has a single guy that really comes close to what Jameer Young is as a first-team All-Big Ten player. They don't have that type of player statistically. If you look at their stats and you look at their averages and points per game, their leading scorer averages like 12 points per game. Like, that's not what Jameer Young does. And I don't think they have anybody trustworthy enough to be like, you go make a play at the end of the game. We absolutely need one. I don't think they have quite what we have in Jameer Young. And having the two best players on the court, I really do think will just allow us to win this game. You're going to need more of a supporting cast in the coming games. And I said in How to Win, Maryland supporters do need to play well. But I really think we can win this game without them doing anything crazy. But they're going to have to play really well in the coming games. But against this Rutgers team, I really think it's up to our star guys. Talk about the big three, Dante Scott, Jameer Young, Julian Reese, to play well. And I don't think Rutgers has anybody as good as Reese or Jameer Young. I feel like that's a pretty fair statement to make. If they went to either of those two teams, I think they would be, or if either of them went to Rutgers, they would be their best player. And I think we can guard Rutgers. We've been so good defensively all year, and this Rutgers team isn't that good offensively. I said it. They don't shoot the ball well. We don't shoot the ball well, but I think we can guard them. We've guarded some much better teams really well than much better offensive teams than Rutgers. So I think we are going to be able to guard this Rutgers team. I think we're going to be able to really clamp down on them. I think it's going to be hard for them to score on us, and I think it's proven that in these couple of matchups, especially the last matchup where they couldn't really score on us at all. They only scored like 45 points, I think it was. So I'm looking at this game and I'm saying they can't take advantage of what we don't do well. We don't shoot the ball well. They can't take advantage of that by shooting the ball well and making it really hard for us to keep up because they're making threes. They can't really take advantage of that weakness because they don't do it well either. I think this is the type of game that Maryland matches up well with, a low-scoring game. Rutgers has been a really good team defensively, I'm not going to lie. But I do think Maryland has the advantage in terms of defense and then also in terms of offense. I think they have the advantage on both sides. And the spread actually kind of says that as well. The spread is 3.5, Maryland minus 3.5. So Maryland is the better team according to Vegas. And I think I agree with that. I do think we're a better team. I don't think it's by a ton, but I do think a 3.5 spread is fair, and I'm going to pick Maryland to cover the spread. I think we win the game by 5-6 points, and we kind of handle the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. I hope I'm coming back today excited and happy to talk about it and excited to go on to the next game and see what we can do overall. anything can happen in March, so who knows? That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.